G'day everybody. Alvar Jones here. I got asked a question by one of the people on my membership site about NPCs, non-player characters, and and I thought I would answer it. And I have a few things to say about it because it's the story's gone around, and I just don't think it's completely true. It's tricky because the claim is that there are some people walking around who are automatons and don't have a soul. And I haven't seen that. I did double check this one day. I just sat in the mall and I watched people walking back and forth and look, do you have a soul? Yep. What about you? Have you got a soul? Yep. 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 There's 100% of people had souls, right? So either I was in the wrong shopping mall or my survey was incorrect or the theory isn't correct. Now, the reason why people call them NPCs and soulless is because they're just really boring people. And the spark of life has gone out of them, and they're in some sort of train track consciousness, and they're just focused on their one thing and just doing their job and going home and making and they're just boring people, and they're making the world boring because they're here. And I would suggest that this is not because they haven't got souls, but because they devoted them to the wrong thing. Now, I did promise to talk about the Matrix in this, and I have spoken about the Matrix at length in one of my prior videos, and that section of it will be attached onto the end of this video. And it's very worth your time to watch because the Matrix is the rules of the game. Those NPCs that we're talking about are people who gave their life to the system. They were promised a house and a wife and kids and a car and holidays every now and again. And they did what they were told. They got into the uniform. They stepped into the role. And instead of expressing who they really are, who they want to be deep inside, they expressed who they needed to be for the company, for the corporation, or however that story goes. It's different for everybody. Now, nobody is born without a soul. Everybody gets a soul. Now, and you'll see from children, they have the feelings that souls have all the time. It's always playful, it's always fun. Like that's the point of existence is to go just to rock around and giggle your way through everything. And you'll see people selling off a little bit of their soul or trading it out or substituting it with what the Matrix has to offer. And you'll see this early on at school with those kids who, spend all of their time doing homework and getting good grades and living into the promise of what what the Matrix has to offer. Trying to achieve according to Matrix standards. And the deeper people dive into that, the more of themselves they give away, the further they diverge from their soul's genuine path. And when it happens, when you really, really dive deep in, you become another suit. And people use suits as a byword for somebody boring, which in a different context you might call an NPC. But the more you commit to that vague promise that the world offers you, well, the more of yourself you have to pay to have it. It's sad and it sucks, but there is a deal made within themselves to dive deeper into what the Illuminati is selling. So, they watch the news, they buy into the news, they buy into the narrative, they support the current thing, let it be Ukraine or trans or women's rights or whatever else is going on, whatever's big in the media, because they're here to distract. That's all here to distract us. But when they buy into it, it means they're giving up their individuality. They're giving up their sense of self and their soul's calling, because what's being offered to them will make them into just another brick in the wall, which is a phrase I don't get to use often enough. Good on you, Pink Floyd. You did a really good job there. But what I'm about to add to this video is an old video about the Matrix and how it works and what it is that all of us are called into. And if once I identify the 5 pillars of the trap, then you'll start to see just what the call is, just how much it wants to draw you in. But for now, I'll let you see this. It's an old piece of footage, it's a few years old, and it explains everything that the Illuminati has to offer us. But for now, enjoy. They've embedded this in, and this is one of the pillars of the matrix that's in every single person. But I want to describe the modern matrix to you, all right? There are 5 pillars to this matrix. The first one is slavery. We are enslaved to the point that we don't even talk about it. It's so baseline, it's so fundamental that we don't even discuss slavery unless you're part of the common law groups or you're studying non-university law. What you'll find is that the birth certificate is actually a contract that sells you to the government. Your body that you just sold to the government, that you just registered with the government, then gets converted into capital. It has a monetary value given to it, and then that money is then traded, and that's what keeps the system going, because the black cube has nothing to offer except trickery. Common lawyers will tell that part of the story much more clearly than I will. If you know it, that's great. If you don't, it's worth investigating. But we are slaves to the point where as soon as we're born, our parents tell us what to do. When we're older, we go to school and the schoolmaster tells us what to do. And there's an adult, and any time the police can tell us what to do, or the government can tell us what to do, and the tax office can come and steal our money, and on the list goes, with all of the limitations, all of the claims that they have on you, because little is it understood that we are actually owned by them. And this is one of the pillars of the matrix, is that we have to work our ass off just to live here, just to exist. And the second pillar of the matrix is individualism or solitude. You are alone. You are not part of, you are, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the matrix, you are an individual. You are single. You are apart from everybody else. And there's lots and lots of cultural features that promote this. You might, every single division, be it under the race or sexuality or gender or creed or religion or belief system, do you vote for the Democrats or the Republicans, whatever it is. Each of these is partitioning humankind again and again with the idea of creating entirely isolation. This is one of the pillars of the matrix. You're a slave and you're on your own. Third one is scarcity. There's not enough stuff for everybody. And that is not true either. We are living on a planet of mega abundance. Every element on the periodic table is here. All the food that we could ever hope for can be grown here. All the housing that we would ever need, there's plenty of materials for it. But no, there are still people who don't get to eat, and there are still people who don't have a house. And this is such a fundamental failure of what's possible on this planet. This is the rulership of our planet is clearly not performing if it fails to manage those functions adequately. It's pathetic. But if you're a monster from across the universe and you want to manipulate the locals who are spiritually underdeveloped, then telling them there's not enough stuff is a good idea. And the whole purpose of having people not eating and being homeless is so that, people who see that will work just a little bit harder to make sure that doesn't happen to them. That's the nightmare. That's the example of what could happen to you if you're not a good slave and you don't work hard. That's what that's for. Scarcity is a rort. There's plenty of everything for everybody. They complain that our planet is reaching over carrying capacity. But that's not true. If it was managed properly, then we could probably double them. I don't know the numbers, but it wouldn't be a problem if we managed this planet properly so that it could look after all the people that we want it to. The next pillar of the matrix is hurry. Not enough time. Between working and family and bills and tax and friends and looking after them and getting the car maintained and it's constant. Like, no, there's not enough time to relax, and there's definitely not enough time to build good relationships with the people around you. You're too damn busy. It's just how it is. And this is a construct of the matrix. And we have a much larger theory of time and how time is used on planet Earth, but it's a little bit more esoteric than this, right? It's kind of off topic, it's a tangent, but we know that time is one of the tools that the great nothing is using against us. And the fifth one is you will never get what you want. You see, one of the things in the matrix is the promise that never gets delivered. You become the donkey with the carrot dangling in front of you that you keep working towards, you keep charging forward forever and ever. And nowadays, I know in Australia and in most of the world, I assume, if you are an average Joe and you work hard for your whole life, you will never be able to buy a house. You can't even get yourself a house to live in, somewhere stable enough as that. It's kind of pathetic. And, you know, they promise career, they promise family, they promise love. But in this world, those things are really hard to create because you're a slave, you're on your own. There's not enough for everybody, and there's not enough time to make it all happen. So you don't get what you want. And this is where it gets really interesting, because there is a way to cheat the matrix. But again, this is within the confines of the matrix. And I'm going to introduce the deity Moloch. And he says, who is Moloch? And when Alex Jones broke into Bohemian Grove and took photos of the Illuminati in front of a big fire, worshipping a 25-foot owl, they were doing a ceremony to Moloch, because Moloch is fundamental to who they are and what they do. You see, Moloch, when I spoke to him and we did a channeling of him, he called himself a trader. And what does he trade? He trades morality for power and money. If you're living in a world where there's not enough and you've got to work hard to get ahead and there's lots of competition and you've got to do something special to get ahead, to make things happen, this is where you deal with Moloch. And what does Moloch trade? He trades morality for stuff. He trades morality for money and power. And what he wants is in order for you to break the surface and get ahead of your contemporaries, you make a deal with the devil. You do something underhanded. You fall into one of those 7 sephirots of greed, envy, gluttony, sloth, etc. You fall into one of those and you cheat. You stab one of your contemporaries in the back. You do something nasty. You get underhanded. You pay the bribe. You get that guy shut down. You get that guy bothered by the council or the government or whatever, or the police or whatever it is. But you do something cheeky and nasty, and you are rewarded by this matrix for doing that. Moloch makes sure of it. Moloch is the deity that makes sure you do. But the whole point of this is that because you broke your purity and your good name and your good behavior, you have created loosh, and that pain and that guilt will stay with you forever. And that loosh feeds back to the great nothing. This is the purpose of the matrix, to squeeze you so you do something desperate. And when you do something desperate, that's when they win. And history is littered with people who have sold out in this way. This is what the matrix is for. We do have an answer. We do have a way out of this.